The media spends a lot of time these days talking about, for example, QAnon, conservative conspiracy theories. There's never been an accounting for the media conspiracy theories. Neera Tanden, Joe Biden's nominee for Office of Management and Budget, OMB, has been withdrawn. I think she stepped aside. She knows she's not going to get confirmed. She peddled a conspiracy theory that Anthony Kennedy had been bribed, and that's why he stepped down. So that Kavanaugh could be on the bench. She pushed that theory. No one in the media called her out. Much of the media has been obsessed with the conspiracy theory that the Russians stole the election for Donald Trump. It is absolutely 100% true that the Russians intended to disrupt the election and intended to sow discord. It absolutely is true. But the media advanced beyond the truth, just like all conspiracy theorists do, to concoct a strange story that included Michael Cohen making surreptitious trips to Prague to meet with Russian agents. That has never been retracted by McClatchy, which has defended the story. The media wants to highlight all of the crazy conspiracy theories people on the right have, but by and large, they buy into the conspiracy theories on the left. They buy into them, they embrace them, they report them as truth. And one of those was about CPAC, the Conservative Political Action Conference. According to mainstream media outlets, though it started as a fringe left-wing thing, the stage at CPAC resembled a Nazi insignia. The stage resembled the Othala rune. The foreword wrote this. The SS Race and Settlement Office included genetic scientists who were in charge of making sure SS officers and their wives remained pure, as well as reassigning formerly Jewish-owned land to the Nazis. It was the office in charge of the heart of the Nazis' racist philosophy, studying the supposedly superior Aryan traits and trying to reproduce them in order to Germanicize sufficiently white Poles and Ukrainians by overseeing their marriages. I don't know that conservatives pay enough attention to what Apple News pushes out with you. Apple uses human curators for its news app. My wife had seen the story about CPAC stage and that it was a Nazi symbol. A lot of people on the left saw it. It got picked up by people in the mainstream media. It was a conspiracy theory, and yet it was treated legitimately by people on the left, by people in the media who are of the left. Now the Forward, a Jewish publication, has come up with this, having covered the controversy and the denials from CPAC. The company that was hired to set up the stage at the Conservative Political Action Conference in Orlando, Florida last weekend has taken full responsibility for the design of the stage that resembled a Nazi insignia. In an exclusive statement to the Forward on Tuesday evening, Design Foundry, a stage design firm based in Hyattsville, Maryland, said it, quote, had no idea that the design resembled any symbol, nor was there any intention to create something that did, end quote. The organizers of CPAC have announced they will not use the firm for future events. Design Foundry has worked with CPAC for several years and has provided services to MSNBC, Google, Citibank, Target, and Joe Biden. But left-wing zealots on social media were able to generate a conspiracy theory no different than the QAnon conspiracy theories, but more damaging to a degree in that it got into the mainstream media as proof that CPAC was some sort of white supremacist gathering. In fact, CPAC found out certain white supremacists were trying to come and blocked them from being able to get in the building. But it just should remind you how easily left-wing conspiracy theories get picked up by the media and treated as mainstream. Which leads me to H.R. 1. The House of Representatives is considering House Resolution 1. For those of you who do not know, House Resolution 1 is always has been, at least for the last 40 years, has always been a messaging piece of legislation. House Resolution 1 never gets passed. It doesn't get passed by Republicans. It doesn't get passed by Democrats. House Resolution 1 doesn't get passed. I've gotten multiple calls from people whipped into a frenzy over what's in it, lowering the voting age to 16, nationalizing the elections, requiring every state to go to mail-in ballots, legalizing ballot harvesting where people can show up at your door and collect your ballot. All the Democratic wish list. It's not going to pass. It can't pass the Senate. It'll pass the House, I'm sure. They'll force it through, potentially. But even then, they've only got 5 votes. I don't know that it will pass. It won't pass the Senate because the filibuster is there, and several Democrats in the Senate have come out and spoken against it. It's got people whipped into a frenzy on the left and the right, though. Here is crooked.com, a left-wing site. The headline says it all. Democrats must prepare for democracy's last stand. The Republican Party faces a fundamental problem. They are dependent on low voter turnout to win. Their policies and politics are increasingly unpopular with the majority of voters. Not true. Forcing them to either broaden their appeals, which they are, or relying on low vote turnout in order to win. That is an issue. And they have chosen the latter. It's a fact of modern American politics acknowledged by former President Trump, state GOP officials, and any number of Republicans in Washington talking amongst themselves in committee rooms and on conference calls when they think Democrats can't hear them. On December 6th, Senator Ted Cruz spoke on the Senate floor in defense of his objection to certifying the results of the 2020 presidential election. Recent polling shows that 39% of Americans believe the election just occurred was rigged. It is the responsibility, I believe, of this office to acknowledge that as a profound threat to the country and to the legitimacy of any administration that will come in the future. And on it goes. And now they claim that the Republicans are doing everything they can, working hand in glove with the Supreme Court to suppress the vote. Voter suppression is a left-wing mythology like the CPAC stage it's been embraced by the media. I mean, the media loves these stories. The media, look at Stacey Abrams. Stacey Abrams refused to concede in 2018. They still treat her as if she won the gubernatorial race in Georgia, and no one questions her. She's allowed to do it. She checks all the intersectional boxes to be able to claim she won the race, and the media can't fact check her because they would be racist if they did. Meanwhile, they went out of their way to blast Donald Trump for just wanting all the votes counted. There is a double standard. You got to acknowledge a double standard. And the left-wing conspiracy theories of voter suppression. Listen, they're targeting Georgia now. Georgia is a focus of this. Democratic voters in Georgia cast nearly twice as many mail-in ballots as Republicans, and in response, the Republican state legislature has introduced numerous bills that would impose onerous ID requirements and restrict absentee voting and voter registration. And like Cruz, Georgia Senate Republicans now claim they do this in response to the calls of millions of Georgians who've raised deep and heartfelt concerns about the November 2020 election. Now, consider this. The Democrats say it's voter suppression. More than 400,000 Republicans, 700,000 total people, more than 400,000 Republicans said they wouldn't go vote in the runoff in January because they didn't believe in the integrity of the process. They thought it would be stolen from them. When Democrats did not turn out in Georgia in 2018, the Democrats said all of those storylines about Republicans potentially blocking people from voting and making it difficult to vote was part of the effort to suppress the vote. It wasn't what the Republicans did, it was how Republicans talked that suppressed the vote. If they're opposed to voter suppression, shouldn't they want to restore integrity to the election so that 400,000, 700 total thousand people will show up and vote in a runoff? You know, in Georgia, 75% of the Republicans who voted and more than 75% of the Republicans who did not vote in the runoff believed that it was going to be stolen. The belief that the election was going to be easily stolen caused more than 400,000 Republicans to stay home. If the Democrats are really worried about voter suppression, shouldn't they want to do whatever they can to encourage those people? Or is it just the Democrats they care about? Is it just the Democrats they care about? I thought that they wanted everyone to vote. If you want everyone to vote, you've got to acknowledge that there are questions whether you think they're ill-founded or not. But also you need to understand that it does make it easy to rig the system. If you have a ballot drop box that's nowhere secure, nowhere near the Board of Elections, nowhere near security cameras, out in a mall parking lot, as some of them were, how easy is it just to pour water down there and ruin the ballots? How easy is it to overwhelm the system? And also, they should note, and they don't want to note, that some of the measures in this House legislation are bipartisan, including curtailing the number of days in which you can request an absentee ballot. The cutoff will now be 11 days before the election. Right now, it's the Saturday before the election. That's got bipartisan support. They don't want to note that. But more importantly, they want to focus on H.R. 1. That the Democrats have to pass H.R. 1 because of a lot of things in the Georgia legislature that aren't going to pass. They keep highlighting these measures in the Georgia Senate. If I came on this program and spent an hour railing on all the fringy, wackadoo things in the Georgia legislature the Democrats wanted to pass, you would say, well, they're never going to pass them. Exactly. And many of the things that the Republicans are looking at, some of the legislation that was dropped, it's not going to pass. The Speaker of the House has already said curtailing who can vote by absentee ballot is already dead on arrival in the House. It's not going to happen. But they're making a big deal out of it. Why? Because the Democrats have conspiracy theories on their own side. They don't like to be held accountable for those theories. The media likes to treat those theories legitimately while being dismissive of the right. The CPAC Nazi symbol stage that wasn't real became a mainstream media story, so much so that my wife saw it on Apple News. So too are the voter suppression stories by the left. It is left-wing mythology, but the media treats it as real. The same media that dismisses QAnon as a conspiracy theory treats all of this stuff as real when it's not true. Is it any wonder so many people don't believe the media anymore?